All right, soccer fans, it's time to talk about the beautiful game. This is On Frame here on ESPN 700. For the next 2 hours, we'll look at soccer from all angles and with guests you won't hear anywhere else. If it's happening in Major League Soccer or around the world, we will be tackling it here tonight. Now, your hosts of On Frame, Brian Dunseth and Trey Fitz-Gerald, right here on ESPN 700.
We're going to make it a triplet. James Rust along with Brian Dunseth and Trey Fitz-Gerald. Welcome on in to On Frame, broadcasting live from the RSL Team Store at Rio Tinto Stadium as they continue on with their Friday friendly. Big party going on here, so if you're just getting off work or you're out and about with the family looking for something to do, come by and say hello at the RSL Team Store. They got the Bounce House out back. Levy Restaurants has some food and a lot going on. So a good time here at Rio Tinto Stadium as we welcome you in. And, guys, I think the best place to start is the rough go Wednesday night here at Rio Tinto Stadium. After, Gunny, the first 20, 25 minutes, it looked like RSL was on cruise control heading for another 3 points.
And I think on top of that, what you saw was a very deflated LA Galaxy team. I think they were static in their movements up top. They were getting frustrated. They were looking around. Arms were being thrown around. Fingers were being pointed already. And then, like we've seen previously, when mistakes are made, sometimes you need those type of mistakes to change your season. And Landon Donovan doing what Alvaro Saborio has done numerous times here at Rio Tinto Stadium against opponents, sitting on the back shoulder of a defender, getting him behind, reading a back pass, and it really sparked a change in mentality on the LA Galaxy and unfortunately led to a loss at home for Real Salt Lake.
Well, and Trey, I think the uncharacteristic play of Real Salt Lake, typically Nick Raimondo in the back four, that's kind of your saving grace for this team, not letting goals in, and that seemed to be where the mistakes were made.
Yeah, and Jason, I thought, both Wednesday night and today, handled the loss very admirably. And obviously he's a psychology major from Duke. He knows it's his duty to set the tone and to not overreact. Try to keep an even keel. We're not going to get too high with big wins. We're not going to get too low with devastating losses. He handled himself so well on the TV broadcast here on ESPN 700 as well, and then with all the media after the game. And, if you go onto the Real Salt Lake website and you watch the AT&T MLS Insider with Dunny, He said today, look, Tony Beltran makes that pass once in 100 games. James and Olave makes that mistake once in 100 games. They both just happen to do it. There's too much experience on this team for that to become a trend, and he would prefer that teams beat us and not for us to give it to him. And he walked away after watching the tape feeling like we gave LA that win.
Well, and not just that, Trey. I think we need to give credit where credit's due, because despite the mistakes that were made, there's still a tremendous amount of skill and individual skill at that leads to those 3 goals. When you're talking about Landon, that's no gimme going up against Nick. And to kind of get that shimmy and be isolated one-on-one, show the far post, cut it back to his left, and still keep it within distance to finish, that's one thing. The second goal, the combination play between Landon and Mike McGee, and McGee's finish, left foot, far post, inside the post, and then Landon utilizing his speed and quickness to get to that ball before anyone else. Despite the mistakes, the difference was, in the past in Real Salt Lake, we've seen mistakes made, they haven't been capitalized on. And what we saw Wednesday night were 3 goals that were taken extremely well. And, I said this after the first goal, Landon's first goal, those are the type of plays, when you've had the season that LA's had so far this year, those are the type of plays that change the season. Because if you look at the first 28 minutes of that match, everybody, you could tell LA was just ready to collapse, going down 2-0 early. And RSL needed that 3rd goal. Once that goal happened, you could see a little bit of a belief, a work rate that raised to get them into halftime, and then they came out and said, all right, we can do this. And so a little bit of credit to LA, despite the fact I was getting murdered on Twitter for my comment about Brian Jordan and wasting time. Because if you look at the big scope of things,
sure,
it was a big mistake by Brian Jordan to come off the field, because after the season LA had, if RSL comes back and ties that game, they're going to look back and say, we could have had 3 points in the road as opposed to just having 1. Why didn't we waste even more time than what we were doing? And And we've seen it throughout the course of history. Teams punished because they weren't taking advantage of the game within the game, and that's wasting as much time as possible.
Well, when you talk about it, how big is the mental side of the game of soccer? Because, I mean, Real Salt Lake, things were clicking, and I noticed even after that bad pass by Tony Beltran, Nick Raimondo gave him a pat on the butt and said, you know what, put that one behind you, let's not worry about it. We're still up 2-1. But just it seemed like mentally it was something they weren't able to get turned around.
Yeah, and I would say emotionally, I'd throw that word in there as well, because it was the first time in a long time I've seen RSL kind of not get back to their quick rhythm, where in the past if they give up a goal, they instantaneously turn around, look at each other and say, all right, we got this, let's get back in it. And it was the first time I saw the level of response wasn't the same it had been previously.
And as Trey mentioned, the way head coach Jason Christ handled things, if you missed the interview, Will Johnson earlier this afternoon on the Bill and Hans show, he said that very thing, Trey, that coach told us in the locker room, you know what, bad loss, sure. We're all disappointed in the loss. This was 3 points that we should have had in our pocket. We're coming away with 0. But you know what? We can't let this affect us moving forward because we got another big match coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think, I'll defer to Dunny's take on this, but having been in those locker rooms for the number of years that he was, but there's some unique aspects to that loss that made not only giving up the lead devastating, but RSL in its 234 game MLS history had never blown a 2-goal lead and lost. So that was a first, right? The fact that it happened here at Rio Tinto Stadium, where this team has only lost 10 games out of its last 81 going back to the beginning of 2008, was another thing. If you combine this game with the Open Cup loss against Minnesota, it's the first time in this building's history, almost 4 years now, that this team has ever lost back-to-back home games. And then the cherry on top, I think, for our fan base, that really has everybody scratching its head, is out of those 10 losses out of the 81 games, 6 have come before sellout crowds. So, I don't think the players really know the difference if there's 18, 19, or 20,000 fans in the stadium. So that's kind of a statistical oddity, I would say. But it's frustrating when this place is rocking to have gone out with 6 of those 10 losses in front of packed houses. I don't think we're losing fans of that. People that came for the first time the other night, they saw 5 goals. They saw a tremendous atmosphere. We're obviously very proud of our fan base, and they're always converting new fans. But so those were some of the extra layers on top of just, being able to send a message. LA hadn't won here in, I think, 6 or 7 games dating back to 2006. So there was a lot of trends. Besides some of the, RSL had a couple different unbeaten streaks that they were trying to get going. The bottom line, and I think Jason put it best, we're still in first place. And like you said, James, you got 72 hours to get ready for the team that maybe can overtake you to come in here. So tomorrow night, we'll talk to Chris Wondolowski about this. But this is a burgeoning rivalry as well between RSL and San Jose.
Yeah, so we're off and rolling here, broadcasting live from the RSL team store at Rio Tinto Stadium. You're tuned into On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you. We take you to 8 o'clock, so 2 hours of soccer talk. And as Trey alluded to, we've got a great lineup set guest-wise. Joining us at about 6:30, Chris Wondolowski as the San Jose Earthquakes will be in. The goal terror that is will be joining the program. Miles Joseph, RSL assistant coach, will be joining us at about 7 o'clock. And then Rob Stone, a soccer insider with Fox Soccer, will be on at 7:30, and we're going to be hitting on all angles, whether you want to talk RSL, Major League Soccer, Euro 2012. It's all fair game on the program. We'll open up the telephone lines to you right now at 877-353-0700. The Sky Satellite telephone line, 877-353-0700. You can also get us on Twitter if you've got questions that way, at ESPN 700 James, at BP_TOW, and at Real Salt Lake. So a lot of ways for you to interact with us here on the program. But, Dunny, I kind of want to get your thoughts quickly on kind of what Trey talked about. And just when you've got a quick game, a quick turnaround, and you had that mental lapse in your previous game, how does a player go about just shutting it off and completely forgetting about what happened on Wednesday night so that you are 100% focused on the match at hand being Saturday night in San Jose.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be quite honest with you. I think the best part about this is you have a quick turnaround time. So it gives you the opportunity to go straight back into it. You've got no travel whatsoever, and you're back at home amongst some of the best fans in Major League Soccer. You're going up against an incredibly tough opponent, a team that's incredibly dynamic going forward, who's proven to be pretty tough defensively, coming off a last-second penalty win, 3 points on the road against Colorado. But what you do take away from it is the negatives, and you try not to make those mistakes again. And I think that's what's kind of the mantra of this group from the outside looking in is we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, let's not repeat those mistakes. And I think the first 15 minutes, you're going to see an energized team come flying out against the San Jose team that is out for blood because they know the first place is on the line in the Western Conference, and that they feel that they're capable of getting 3 points on the road. And you're going to have an RSL team that's probably going to have to make some changes based on the substitutions that we saw at the end of the game, last game. And they're in for a battle. Chris Wondolowski's proven consistently year after year that he's one of the best strikers in Major League Soccer. Doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but when he does, he keeps his opportunities on frame. And then you got Alan Gordon and Steven Lenhart, two of the most physical players in Major League Soccer that absolutely love to go up against RSL's defense. So you take the negatives and you take those negatives away from the negatives, and you kind of harness them, and you try not to make the same mistakes. And I think you're going to see a team in RSL that's going to be happy to get back on the field as quickly as possible to redeem themselves at home in front of their fans.
Well, I was just going to say I'm scanning the articles in tomorrow's papers that are now hitting online, and everybody, Tony Beltran, Will Johnson, they're saying, look, what's done is done. It's about the reaction. That's what we're focused on is exactly what Dunny just said. You can't make those mistakes twice. We saw it with Jason talking about Kyle Rainish a little earlier in the year. Makes a mistake late against Dallas and lets that carry over a little bit into that Open Cup game. And if you live with the mistake or let it live with you, it can cost you more than one game and cost you multiple games.
Well, and we've got to hop out to a quick break, but maybe on the other side, I want to get your guys' thoughts. You're both around this team as they train, as they're getting ready for San Jose on Saturday. We'll look at maybe the injuries and the impact that may have on the game come Saturday. You're tuned in to On Frame here on ESPN 700. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, Trey Fitz-Gerald with you. Again, the telephone number to reach us at if you want to join us on the program. Any questions or comments that you might have for us, 877-353-0700. Again, 877-353-0700, or on Twitter at ESPN700James, at BP_TOW, and at Real Salt Lake. A bunch of ways for you to interact with us right here on Frame. Back after a quick break. You're listening to On Frame on ESPN 700.
If you missed through... This is On Frame, Utah's only soccer insider show on radio. Now back to the boys on ESPN 700.
And welcome back in On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you. We take you up to 8 o'clock talking soccer with you as we broadcast live from the RSL Team Store at Rio Tinto Stadium. It's their Friday friendly. Happens every Friday before a home game, and San Jose, the Earthquakes, will be in tomorrow night for a Western Conference showdown with Real Salt Lake, the top two teams in the Western Conference. But guys, before the break, we were touching on some injuries that RSL may be dealing with. In the last two games, we've seen James Olave subbed off midway through the second half. And Trey, I know it's a calf injury that he's kind of dealing with a little bit. What's kind of the significance to his injury, and really how's it affecting him?
Well, he's obviously not himself. He hasn't been able to move quite as freely, and as Jason said after the game the other night, if Chris Schuler was available, which he's not because of a bone stress fracture concern in his left foot, and Jason did tell the media today that Schuler's progressed really well and should start training with the team next week. But Jamison just he's been coming off after a half hour. Javi's gone in for him. That pushes Wingard into the middle. Will Johnson slots in an outside back, and then RSL right now a little deeper in midfield than they are in the back line. So what Jason decides to do tomorrow with Kenny Mansali, the new signing, is a possibility. Tanaka The team is 2-0 when he starts at right back, and then or you can put Will Johnson there, and then that opens up another slot for Steele or Grabavoy or Luis Gill in the midfield. So Jason's got a lot of options to consider.
Now, Dunny, before we get to Mansally, I wanted to get your thoughts as somebody who's played on the back line. For Chris Wingert, playing on the outside, then having to shift to the middle, what's the difference there between, I mean, you say the back four, but really it's two totally different positions, playing on the outside and playing in the middle.
No, absolutely. I think when you're talking about going from an outside back to playing centrally, obviously you're having to look over both shoulders as opposed to just worrying about your inside shoulder. For Chris, constantly tucking in from that left-hand side, he's always looking over his right to make sure that the communication with Nat Borchers is there. But he's also got that sideline, so he's protected. He can see what's in front of him. The hardest thing for him is when balls are coming from the right-hand side of the defense, the opponent's left flank. He's got to pinch in a little bit more and face the play a little bit more. So the change is now centrally, if he should play, which we've seen that adjustment the last two games, it's just communication. And the good thing about Chris is that he has so much experience in this league. And starting out, he's played outside back with Columbus. He's played as a defensive midfielder. People forget he's a Hermann Trophy winner. He's won the equivalent of the Heisman in college soccer. So he's got a great soccer brain, technically and physically capable of playing that position. Obviously does not possess the recovery speed that Jamison Olave has, does not possess the physical strength and size that Jamison Olave has. So there's a significant drop-off in terms of that, just from a starting point. But you have to utilize the brain and the soccer brain that Chris Wingert has, and you've got to hope that makes up for some of the significant losses of not having Jamison on the field or having a physical strength of Chris Schuler on the field.
And, Dunny, he reminded the media today that he's played a lot of games at center back in his college and professional career.
Yeah,
probably more than he's played outside back, even though he's been almost exclusively on the outside here.
Yeah, in Columbus Crew, he spent a lot of time with Chad Marshall first couple of years, with kind of shifting in and out with Tony Sana as well when he was in Columbus. So it wasn't until he went to Colorado that they started utilizing him as an outside back on both sides. And people forget you can't really even tell what foot he is, even though he's playing on the left-hand side. He was
correct,
ball
not right,
left, right. But yeah, it's like I said. Obviously, having an incredible amount of riches when you're talking about Jamison's size and strength, the recovery speed, and the same with Chris Schuler. And for the first time this year, that's pretty much a concern. We haven't been talking about our center back issues, so far at all this year.
Now, quickly before we get to break, RSL had the signing earlier this week. Kenny Mansally, Gambian international player, plays defense with the international team, but here in the league has been more known as a forward midfielder type player. What does he bring to Real Salt Lake, and maybe how soon can RSL fans expect to see him on the pitch for Jason Kreis?
Well, that's a good question, and Dunny's seen him play for New England a lot more than I have, but he is primarily an outside back for us. It's where Jason's had him in. Kenny came in on trial with the unfortunate position of his first practice being the day after the Minnesota game. So
there you go.
He was thrown in trial by fire.
Welcomed with open arms.
Never been a more apt description, but he was thrown in at left back, and that's where he plays for Gambia, as you mentioned, James, and he played there in the reserve game, a 2-1 win against Chicago last week. So that's where Jason's really looking at him. He's not as much as a winger or as what would he be on our depth chart right now? Probably the fourth or fifth forward. It's really looking for him. He's still young. He's played 87 games. He's still only 22 years old. Signed with the league as a 17-year-old. So he's got a ton of experience for a young guy, and he's got a big opportunity here, Dunny.
Well, and on top of that, he's a young player with international experience. He is financially in the realm that you would like to see in terms of trying to sign and keep your cap number down. He can play in multiple positions, even though he's a left back in a pinch. If you need to make a tactical adjustment, you don't want to burn certain substitutions, you can throw him up top and make that adjustment. He can play as a striker, he can play as a midfielder, he's left-footed, and those are the type of players that you want in terms of there's not a lot of need to get him acclimated to the style and speed of play. You want to get the philosophy and what you're trying to accomplish in terms of what Real Salt Lake's looking for. And that being said, it's a very solid, good signing for RSL as opposed to having to go out into the marketplace and maybe bring somebody up.
There's not a moment that's too big for him with what he's been through in New England. I mean, any other 22-year-olds that we've looked at any position, they might get a little freaked out by the moment, the competition.
Well, and not to downplay what his situation has been. Coaching change, and Jay Heaps has essentially brought in 5 new forwards.
Sure.
So, you've got to make decisions. And they went out and New England spent a lot of money on their signings this past offseason. So, at the end of the day, when you're looking to people that you have to make decisions about because of your financial instability of your organization or your cap space, sometimes you got to make tough decisions, and guys that are good enough to play on your team are sacrificed because you want to put your own stamp on the team. And I think that's where Kenny kind of fell into. Yeah. More than capable of playing in this league, more than capable of making a roster in this league. But I think he fell victim, like a lot of players have throughout the course of history in Major League Soccer, is that new coach comes in, he wants to put his stamp on, and maybe you're considered one of the old guard. So I think it's a great signing for RSL, and I look for him to see more and more time, especially once CONCACAF Champions League starts to come into play.
You're tuned into On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you here on ESPN 700. We're going to hop out to a quick break, but on the other side, we'll be talking with one of the top goal scorers in Major League Soccer, Chris Wondolowski, and he'll be in town tomorrow night with the San Jose Earthquakes to take on Real Salt Lake here at Rio Tinto Stadium. So after a quick break, we'll talk with Wando. You're listening to On Frame right here on ESPN 700.
You're listening to On Frame, the Soccer Insider Show. To join the program, call 877-353-0700. Now back to the boys on ESPN 700.
And welcome back into On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you, broadcasting live from the RSL Team Store. The Friday friendly taking place. You got the FIFA Xbox tournament. They've got the grill fired up out back, Levy Restaurants, and a lot of good stuff going on here. Brett Fisher's got the store stocked up with RSL gear, getting you ready for RSL and San Jose tomorrow night right here at Rio Tinto Stadium. And Dunny, a big game on a number of different levels. Obviously, RSL, San Jose 1-2 in the Western Conference standings. RSL falling Wednesday night here at home to L.A., while San Jose picked up kind of a late game. It looked like they were in trouble a little bit and managed to come away with 3 points on the road, getting the 2-1 win over Colorado.
Yeah, and they left it late. Brian Mullen got a goal in the 18th minute to give Colorado the 1-0 lead. Then Hunter Freeman ruled to give an own goal in the 83rd, and then literally in the final seconds of the match, Alan Gordon goes down with contact in the box with Matt Pickens. It was a judgment call by the referee. He points to the spot. Chris Wondolowski steps up and makes it 2-1 in the 92nd minute. And the interesting thing with San Jose is when you go back to the game earlier this season, 2 red cards handed out at San Jose and really left it late to get that 3-1 win at home. But when you talk about San Jose and the differences the different team that they have this season, a healthy Steven Lenhart to pair up with Wondolowski, a healthy Alan Gordon, and then you add a guy like Victor Bernardez, a big Honduran defender in front of John Bush. And this team, in my opinion, I said this from day one heading into the season, they got significantly better in the offseason. You look at their attempts on goal. Last game, 15 attempts on goal, 9 shots on target. This is a team, when they take their chances, they take their chances well. And Wando's, in my opinion, the premier striker in terms of having limited opportunities and consistently punishing teams, testing goalkeepers. And one of the reasons why, you look back at his goal-scoring rate the last 3 years, 18 goals in 2010, 16 goals last season. He's already hit 12 this year. and he makes the most of limited opportunities when he gets them.
Well, I mean, he's at 12 this year, but he was on an absolute tear early on. He even went through a stretch of, I think, 3 or 4 games where he didn't score a goal, and that's just how dangerous he's been throughout the MLS season, and paired up with Lenhart up top. Looking back at the game with Real Salt Lake back in April at Buckshaw Stadium, it was a 3-1 loss for Real Salt Lake. Some red cards did in RSL that night, and so probably maybe a little bit bad blood that we might see a little bit tomorrow night as RSL is looking for revenge once again, much like the Chivas team.
Absolutely. Steven Lenhart is a Fabian Espindola-esque type player in terms of he knows how to rile up his opponents. He knows how to get underneath the skin of fans, his opponents, everyone around him. And he's been a player that's always caused RSL some sorts of trouble. And that goes back to his days at Columbus Crew. He is an antagonistic player because of his size and his strength. He's like an Atiba Harris. I call him a baby giraffe. He's not really sure where his body's going at times, but he's got these big, long limbs that will always catch you. And he's a very good player. He's an underrated player in terms of what he's capable of doing, of holding up the ball, bringing in players, and he's got a better skill set than people give him credit. Now, you pair him and Alan Gordon alongside Chris Wondolowski, and there's a lot of focus, a lot of physical focus that is taken off of Wando because of the size and strength of those two players. And then you throw in a Simon Dawkins, who's incredibly dynamic, coming in underneath, the speed of Marvin Chavez on the flanks. And this is a very, very good team, and there's a reason why they're so close to RSL in terms of the top spot in the Western Conference.
Are you surprised at all, Dunny? I mean, they had a lot of turnover in the offseason. Last year was a very disappointing campaign for John Doyle. Frank Yallop's job was questioned for much of last year. I don't know how real any of that was, but it just seemed like coming off such a tumultuous 2011 that they got everything together and got it together quickly this season.
Well, you go back to 2010 and they qualified in the Eastern Conference for a playoff spot, and they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was a fluke goal from Kosuke Kimura at Dick's Sporting Goods that ended up in the back of the net that beat John Bush, that put them into the MLS Cup in Toronto. I was surprised last year by the struggles that they had. That being said, I'm trying to figure out how I can term this for radio. The personalities that they had last year, they do not have in the locker room this year.
Okay.
So, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think they're a stronger group. I think they're a team because of the quality of players, the additions that they've made, the growth of a guy like Justin Morrow, the additions of Victor Bernardez, Marvin Chavez, re-signing Simon Dawkins, a healthy Steven Lenhart, and a healthy Alan Gordon, even David Bingham, the backup goalkeeper that got his first win with John Bush being suspended for the game in Colorado. This team has gotten significantly better in terms of competition, locker room mentality, and I think they're starting to put it all together within the realm of 90 minutes week in, week out. Even when they lose games, they're still dangerous.
Yeah, we're efforting Chris Wondolowski. You're listening to On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you here on ESPN 700. Dunny, as far as the tactical landscape, what kind of soccer should we expect to see tomorrow night from San Jose? Do they like to work the edges or play kind of up the middle, cross it in? What are we kind of looking for from the Earthquakes for tomorrow night?
I think a little bit of both. They're a team that likes to keep the ball in the deck. I mean, you look at their back line. Right now they're playing Steve Betschauer on the right-hand side, Justin Moore on the left, Hernandez and Bernardez in the middle. Strong defensively in the midfield. They like to keep the ball on the ground, not afraid to hit that big switch. But they have the size and the strength. With Lenhart, his ability to hold the ball up, that creates so much trouble for opponents. Then you have Wando and what he's capable of doing in terms of his educated runs and always picking great spots, and then just constantly keeping his opportunities on frame. This is a team that, in my opinion, is still underrated in the big scheme of things of the Major League Soccer landscape.
And joining us right now, Chris Wondolowski of the San Jose Earthquakes. He'll be in Rio Tinto Stadium tomorrow night. Chris has been on a scoring tear. RSL fans hoping he cools down for a night. But, Chris, we appreciate you making time for us. Welcome into On Frame.
Oh, absolutely. Hi, how are you guys doing?
Doing well. Let's start quickly. Looking back at your guys, it's a quick turnaround for you, as it is for RSL as well. Looking at that match at Colorado, the 2-1 victory, just kind of give us your thoughts on the victory there, coming out of that game, coming into Rio Tinto Stadium tomorrow night.
I mean, it was a heck of a result for us, so we were pretty proud of to come back from down 1-0, especially score 2 goals late. Colorado it's such a tough place to play. They've been playing well as of late, like to keep the ball, and so anytime you have to chase the game, as we did for pretty much almost the full 90 minutes, it takes a little bit out of you, but we pride ourselves in being a very deep team, so I think plan is to be ready for tomorrow night.
Chris, not only are you guys deep, but you guys are the Goonies, man. Never say die. And 4 of the 9 wins, I believe, now this year have come on goals in stoppage time. I mean, talk a little bit about, I guess, the camaraderie in the locker room, fighting for each other, believing in everything Frank's putting out there for you that leads to that kind of never say die. RSL, we have it here. We've got a lot of those kind of wins as well, but you guys are setting the world on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that we've been saying in the locker room now for a little bit. Is Goonies never say die, and it's just kind of catching on. And like you said, I really believe that there's just that camaraderie in the locker room. I know for me personally, I just enjoy going in every day, seeing those guys, and it makes me want to just go out there and fight for them for the full 90 minutes. And once if you go down the goal, we can still just look at each other, and we know that we're not going to start yelling at each other and get each other down, that we're just going to try to amp it up a little bit extra and try to just keep going till the last minute. And I think it really helps when you bring some substitutes in and, that can just really rise the level and bring some energy to you.
Wando, we were talking before you came on just about the change in the team this season. And the one thing I was talking about is it just seems as if you guys just respect each other. The approach to the game is similar. Like you just talked about the competition, the depth, and even going back to the games and the results that have been negative, you guys have still been in each individual game. What's been the biggest difference between 2011 in that locker room and what you guys have in 2012?
I think the biggest thing is just a belief. We came into this preseason and we believed in the team. Our front office has done a great job. John Doyle, our president, Frank has brought in some great players, and we really have a belief that we're going to go out there and try to win every game. Where I can say, definitely said in years past, sometimes that feeling wasn't there, that belief. We'd get scored on and heads would drop. We would just say, oh, here it comes again. I sure hope we just don't get blown out. I hope we keep it respectable, where this year we're going to just fight even harder and to come back, and I think it's shown. And so to every man in the locker room, it started in preseason and how much work each of us have put in. I think that's really where it comes down to, and where the belief and trust comes into it.
Wando, I think you're an incredibly interesting case study in terms of a Major League Soccer career. A lot of people complain about the Reserve League and complain about how it kind of takes away from preparation to MLS play. But if you can, kind of walk us back through your history, because if it hadn't been for the Reserve League, you might not have had the opportunity to have the career that you've had so far.
Oh, absolutely. I can say for certain I would not be able to. I would not be where I am in this league, even because the year I was drafted was the year they implemented the Reserve League and expanded the rosters, which then was able for me to be drafted late in supplemental pick. And also just shows you, I mean, as you know, coaches always, just as they should, try to prepare the team for the first team game. And so they concentrate on those 11, 14, 18 guys. And sometimes, guys in the back sometimes, aren't always part of the practice. And so a reserve game was a great opportunity for me to show what I can do and, try to take it game in, game out. And it's a great competition, great level where you can show what you can do in a game. And even if you are practicing every day, it's hard to show yourself as well. Just think, oh, they're just doing that in practice, where a game opportunity, a game situation is always different.
Hey, Chris, what are your thoughts on the current setup of the Reserve League? I know our coaches and our organization has been pretty vocal about wanting to get that Reserve League schedule from 10 games to 30 for the exact reason you said. I mean, guys need games. week in, week out to continue to improve, and the coaches need that to assess that. And having, some Garth Lagerwey, Jason Kreis have kind of floated the idea that having an MLS second division or having a stronger relationship with the NASL and some of the other minor leagues could help every MLS team deepen the talent pool for young players.
I definitely believe so, and I think that, I don't know the exact formula of what it would take, but I think that that's going to be the next level of what's going to take for MLS to get to that next level, I believe. I think now we started bringing in some great guys from, foreign countries and have really started to take that end of the spectrum up, but I think that we need to still develop talent, and that way is to get them games, and it's hard to bring in some young guys and put them, throw them in the fire right away. So I think that they need to have as many games as possible, and, if it's to make the reserve league, 20, 25, 30 games, I think that would help. And like you said, if you can have some affiliation or relationship with some NASL teams where you can play them, they can go on loan there, and I think that would help the situation too. Because just as like you guys know, it's all about the games, and you can do as much fitness, you can do running after, but it's not the same as when you're into a game. Let alone the decision making that you make, just the knowledge of the game is just completely different from a practice aspect towards the game aspects, and so it's a huge part.
Chris, a lot of people up here in Salt Lake City, they point to your game and they find it similar to head coach Jason Kreis's career in terms of never really the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, but you constantly make these intelligent runs to give yourself an opportunity to get on the end of things. And on top of that, a lot of your chances are continually on frame, and I think it just shocks people how accurate you are in terms of constantly testing the goalkeeper when you might not get too many chances over the course of the game. How have you personally seen your game evolve to the point where now you're involved with the U.S. men's national team and you're being coached by one of the best strikers in the history of the game, Jurgen Klinsmann?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of crazy just to think back on that and think how far it's come. But I remember growing up and watching, Jason Kreis and all these great strikers, and just like you said, Jurgen Klinsmann. I remember watching him as well. And something about those guys is that they're just lethal. They have that killer instinct when they're in the box and they get a half a chance. Not as they on frame, it's hard, it's low, and it's usually in the back of the net, and that's something that I try to take pride in, and something that I continue to work on. And even though I've had a bit of success, I really do take pride in working on it every day and practice, and so that when you get that game, the shot in the game, it's just muscle memory, and you know exactly what to do, you know how to get the ball out of your feet, you know exactly where to hit it. And, it's just one of those things where I think practice makes perfect. And I guarantee if you ask Jason Kreis and Klinsmann what they, if they practiced it, I bet they would say the same thing. And so I think that's something that you always want to preach, and something that I preach to the youth is just keep practicing which you can do.
Chris Wondolowski with us here on Frame on ESPN 700. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald. Chris, let's look ahead to tomorrow night. A big matchup, a Western Conference battle. Real Salt Lake, 32 points through 16 games played. You guys in San Jose right on their heels, 30 points through 15 games played. What's the mindset of your team coming into Rio Tinto Stadium tomorrow night with an opportunity to leapfrog RSL for that top spot in the West?
We're going to come in fired up and ready to go, and we really think that we're just going to try to implement our game. But as you know, Salt Lake is such a great team, and especially at home. And something that we almost kind of take pride is that we try to go after Salt Lake and try to play like them. They play a great game. They stay organized defensively, have a great back four, defend as a team, try to play possession, try to keep the ball, and then when they do get an opportunity, make sure they finish it. And that's some kind of blueprint that we've tried taking. And so I think it's two fairly similar teams, and I think it'll be a good game. Usually I think there'll be some good football played, but it's going to be a battle, though. I really think so, and it's going to come down to an opportunity or two, and we're hoping that we're the ones that can finish them.
Chris, with the exception of that game in Kansas City, which is really a wipeout with you being with the U.S. national team and Lenhart being suspended because of yellow card accumulation, you guys have been incredible on the road. 5 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw this season. when you're looking at Real Salt Lake, and I'm not asking for game plan, just asking for concerns. What are some of the points of the field in terms of Real Salt Lake's game that kind of concern you guys heading into tomorrow?
I think, along with, they have, obviously a great goalkeeper in Raimondo. Their back four is so solid. And two great guys, up top that can finish and are deadly with their runs. But I really think what keeps them ticking is their midfield. And, that leader, Kyle Beckerman, he keeps them going. And they play that diamond in the middle, and it's very tough to defend. And they do a great job of movement is the key thing. Obviously they have great technical ability and great vision and smart with the runs, but their movement is something special, and it's very hard to defend. And we feel that's going to be a key component is that midfield battle tomorrow night.
I just want to talk a little bit about Steven Lenhart and your partnership. It seems now that Steven's healthy, both physically and mentally, coming off last year, that you guys not only you guys enjoy playing with each other, but the way you read each other and your movements. Are you surprised how quickly that you guys have clicked in terms of creating chances in your movement off the ball?
I really am. I think he's such a smart player, and I think that goes he kind of gets underestimated how smart of a player he is because he's such such great physical attributes. He's big, he's strong, he'll battle you, he'll tackle, play defense and offense, but he's smart with his runs. He knows where to go. He knows how to create space, not only for himself, but for myself as well. And I think that we both run off of each other really well, and we both see that. And so when he sees myself make a run, he can find that space, and we really have clicked. But I think he's just a joy to play with. For me personally, I think we really enjoy each other, and we keep each other going throughout the game. And I think that's another huge aspect of it, that we keep each other fired up. We like to laugh, we like to joke, and it makes it fun out there.
I've always wanted to ask you with Steven. I've always thought that because of his size and his strength and what he's capable of doing, that sometimes it gets downplayed how technically good and gifted he really is, how truly gifted he is. Because I played with him with Brian McBride, I see a lot in Lenny. Do you ever think that Steven, if given the opportunity, could make that impact at the international level with the United States?
I really think he could. He's just bred for that. I think that target forward, which is something that we really need. But like you said, with how physical he is, and sometimes you see, his knees and elbows and legs just flying everywhere. That it goes unnoticed that his touch was right there, right where he wanted it, or his pass. He has great vision and can pass as well. And I think he is still growing as a player and developing his technical ability. And I think he's just only going to get better and has a lot of upside. And so I can definitely see him being into that system and helping the U.S. out down the line.
Hey, Chris, just from an external perspective, how do you view the job that Jason Kreis has done here? You've been in the league the whole time since he's kind of immediately traded in that captain's armband for the clipboard on the side and rebuilt this organization from the competitive standpoint. I know you've had a great deal of experience with Dominic Kinnear and everything he did in San Jose and Houston, but talk a little bit about how Jason and Garth and this organization is perceived from the outside.
They're considered top notch, and as you can tell, they've won championships, and they're always at the top of the table, and so it shows how well they've done, and they've brought in great players, but just the system that they've implemented is amazing, and they love to fight for each other. They'll fight, they'll battle, they'll tackle. And the thing is, they'll do the little things. They don't have any prima donnas out there that, won't play defense or, only will play when they have the ball, or if they change the lineup, they'll pout. They have great guys that, that seem to really enjoy each other. And something that, some people from afar might, consider, I think, Jason's gotten some flack for just how fiery or competitive he is. But for me personally, I would love to, play for a coach like that. I've played, with Dominic Kinnear, who is also like that. And I think that it's a good thing. And if you ask, each Salt Lake player, I think to a man, they like that. And sometimes it's inspiring, and will get them fired up. And, that you always want the coach to have your back and be on your side, and it's always nice to have.
Chris Wondolowski with us here on Frame on ESPN 700. Chris, we're going to cut you loose. We appreciate you making time for us. Continued success to you, although maybe not too much success tomorrow night here at Rio Tinto Stadium.
All right, thanks. I appreciate having me on,
Chris.
guys.
All right. Wanda. Chris Wondolowski of the San Jose Earthquakes here, and some really great compliments, guys, that Chris paid to Real Salt Lake, saying, San Jose, we're a team that we kind of pattern the way we play after Real Salt Lake, and it kind of goes to say how successful that pattern has been as two of the top teams in the Western Conference.
Well, and I think it's an interesting case study because no one has kind of pointed out the fact that the San Jose Earthquakes are a very similar team in terms of salary cap structure and the limited amount of kind of quote-unquote big international name players. You look at the guys on that team, Wando obviously with the United States, Marvin Chavez with Honduras, Victor Bernardez in the back with Honduras, and then a couple other guys that have had maybe sniffs here or there. But this is a team that's kind of built in a very similar manner. And I think I'm a firm believer that just because you have the ability to sign big salary number players, it's not always the best decision. And in the past, San Jose has tried that, and it hasn't worked out. And this year, I think they've built a team of good, hardworking, blue-collar players from different nooks and crannies of the world. And they've all bought into the same philosophy. And I think it's really set forth by the group. I think the group starts, not just, Frank Yallop and his experience and the fact that players want to play for him, but I think they have enough leaders that have been there and done that on this team. John Bush is another perfect example that they've got guys that hold each other accountable inside the locker room and on the training field, and I think that's one of the reasons why they've seen some success.
Well, and Trey, these are two fiery teams. I mean, there's been comments made by John Bush. There's been things that have happened. Would you maybe throw San Jose into that category along with the LA Galaxy, the Colorado, kind of that budding rivalry between those teams and Real Salt Lake?
Yeah, I don't think it's there yet. It could be this year. I mean, if you look at the recent history of games, you've got the RSL getting 2 reds early, a month and a half ago down in San Jose. Remember, RSL had that 29-game home unbeaten streak, but the only reason that thing kept going is I think it was Pioneer Day in 2010. It was a Chris Leach own goal in stoppage time that allowed RSL to walk out of here with a 1-1 draw. So there have been some good moments. I think Chris put it best. A lot of respect between these two teams. I'd say there's a lot more hatred of Colorado and maybe even a little jealousy of LA. Maybe not jealousy, just disdain for how they go about things.
Well, you're in for a good one tomorrow night, RSL and San Jose here from Rio Tinto Stadium. Up next on Frame, we'll catch up with RSL assistant coach Miles Joseph. You're listening to On Frame right here on your home of RSL, ESPN 700.
Back to more soccer conversation on Frame here on your home of RSL, ESPN 700.
And welcome back in. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, Trey Fitz-Gerald with you into hour number 2 of On Frame, getting you ready for Real Salt Lake and the San Jose Earthquakes tomorrow night right here at Rio Tinto Stadium. Right now we welcome in assistant coach Miles Joseph to the program, fresh off a bike ride. Coach, how you doing?
What's going on, guys?
Not a whole lot. You survived the bike ride, we take it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear the full story, I can give it to you. I mean, it's a pretty good story.
It's only a 2-hour show, Miles.
Jeff Cassar is the smartest coach on the staff.
Because he
turned around about 30 minutes into the bike ride.
Oh, that is awesome. Where did you end up going? You come down through Mill Creek by Dog Lake?
Listen, yeah, we went from Gargosa Park right here in Park City over the top of the Canyon Mountain and into Mill Creek where we left the car.
Good for you.
The only thing we didn't have to do was fight a forest fire up there. I looked like a coal miner when I was done.
No more back fat for you. You're almost done.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Coach, let's start with looking back at Wednesday night. I know Jason Christ told the guys, this is one game. We're disappointed in the result, but we can't let it affect us. What's kind of the mindset that you've seen with the guys coming out of the loss Wednesday to LA and getting ready for this big one tomorrow night?
just make it better. You know, it's a short turnaround, so guys just kind of have to move on very quickly, and you know, we got something to prove on Saturday. Move on and give our best performance.
Miles, we always see mistakes during the game. It's inevitable. That's one of the best parts about the game that we play. But have you seen a team as clinical as LA was this season? I mean, because 3 mistakes, not usually do you see a team capitalize like that in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, I mean we, you know, it's one thing, you know, when they earn a victory, but you know, I guess in a way they did because they finished the chances they had. So, but it's very difficult when you give a game away like that, and you know the mindset is just you know what, guys, we don't usually give those chances away, and let's just move on and make it better. You know, you're right though. I mean, they did great with their opportunities that they had, and they buried their chances, and you know that's why they're a dangerous team.
Speaking of moving on, looking ahead, Miles, what are you seeing in the tape when you look at San Jose? Obviously, that game back on April 21st was this team's last loss before Wednesday night. But I mean, do you kind of throw that game out a little bit because we were down to 10 men for 70 minutes, and I think we were down to 9 for the last 20?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, San Jose is a dangerous team. They have dangerous players, and right now they're full of confidence. So, they're a good team. They're playing well. They have a lot of dangerous attacking players. They seem to, as the game goes on, get stronger. You know, so you can't, you know, in critical times at the end of the game, you can't make mistakes because they'll punish you.
Miles, when you've seen the evolution of this group of players and kind of the additions this season, what has kind of stood out in terms of some young, untested players and then some veteran players that have come in from lower levels, have really acclimated themselves to the philosophy of this group pretty early?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, you know, at the players that we brought in and over the last couple of years, and some of the younger players, they buy in. You know, the first thing that they, you know, learn, I think, very quickly is how we defend. And our whole team defends very well. And if you can't do that part of it, you just can't play for ourselves. You know, that's really the bottom line. So you can weed out players pretty quickly by their willingness to defend and learn our way and how we defend as a unit.
Miles, it's a long season, and I know a lot of guys don't want to get bogged down in certain, I guess, historical facts, but this team has dropped the last 2 games in a row here at Rio Tinto Stadium, which is extremely uncharacteristic with the, you know, Open Cup loss, which, a month ago, and then Wednesday night. Talk a little bit about the focus to get 3 points every time out at home. Obviously, we're throwing a lot of numbers forward the last 20 minutes on Wednesday night, and what that means for this for the locker room to see the stands that full as we are used to doing here.
I mean, hey, listen, you're gonna lose. You're gonna drop a couple games at home through a course of a year, or a couple seasons. I mean, I think over the history of the past, you know, I mean, at least since I've been here, you know, this is my 3rd season. You know, we haven't lost too many games at home. So, you know, we just, you know, hey, it's every game is a battle in this league. You know, you gotta be ready from, you know, right from the start all the way to the finish. And if you let up for 1 minute during that game, like we saw, or you make a couple critical errors, teams can punish you. So, I mean, if you're not ultra focused through 90 minutes, you know, anything can happen. So, I mean, at home, you know, we have the crowd. I mean, they're an unbelievable crowd, and we have plenty of scoring chances. And you know, it comes down to, you know, hey, a couple, you know, maybe just a couple plays going a certain way, and you know, we usually tie that game up, and we're not really talking about it too much. But you know, hey, we're a great team at home. You know, if we're gonna drop 1 or 2 games a year at home, you know, so be it. We're gonna win most of them. So, and you know, every game in the Western Conference, you have to kind of look at as a 3-game series. So, tomorrow's an important match for us to even up the series on San Jose.
RSL assistant coach Miles Joseph with us here on Frame on ESPN 700. And Miles, you saw Landon Donovan on Wednesday night, one of the best American-born players playing in the league, if not the best. You've got Chris Wondolowski coming in tomorrow night, one of the best goal scorers in Major League Soccer. What's the message to the guys? How do you go about slowing down a player like Wondolowski?
I mean, it's pretty simple. You got to know where the guy is at all times. I mean, you let up or, on him and not know where he is for 1 second on a service, any set piece, during the run of play, any counterattack, the guy's going to be in a spot to score. That's just the way he plays. I mean, he's a very, very good opportunistic player. I mean, that's what he is. That's why he scores so many goals and why he's an important piece of that San Jose team.
Taking a look at his strike partner in Steven Lenhart, a lot of talk in MLS when you're talking about certain teams. You constantly look at the guy playing off the most dangerous guy, and when you're talking about Steve Lenhart, the size and strength and kind of underrated skill set that he has, on top of being an antagonistic type of player. What are some of the talking points defensively in terms of those two, and then always keeping an eye on a guy like Simon Dawkins who likes to come in underneath?
Yeah, I mean, he's another player. He's a hard-working player. He does a lot with his back to the goal, and he also gets in behind, because he has deceiving pace. So he's another guy. I mean, he's almost a perfect pair, match, for Wondolowski to play up top with. They kind of he does a lot of the dirty work. He beats down defenders, tires them out. And hey, listen, he's pretty good with the ball too. He's he scored a handful of goals this year, and he's a dangerous player as well. And he's a huge threat in the air on service, and they rely a lot on their service.
Miles, the CONCACAF schedule came out today. We saw our group dates against Herediano and Toro FC starting on July 31st down in Costa Rica. Have we done much research? What do we know about these teams? They're both champions of their countries. And I think the upside for this schedule is that we've been to Costa Rica and Panama during our last CONCACAF run, so that familiarity should at least help us out a little bit this go round.
Yeah, when it gets closer to us playing them, we will be looking at their last few games, and then as we get in the Champions League, and how they're rotating their lineups and things like that. We can't be too concerned with it. We know they're both very, very good teams. They're champions, so we know we got our hands full.
Miles, a lot of conversations amongst fans here in Utah are always, when they start to dig in deep, they're trying to find out about the academy kids, the guys coming through. With someone like yourself who's got a great handle on all these young players, who are some of these names that we could be on the lookout for here in the near future?
Donnie, you cut out a little bit right there, so can you just repeat that? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I was saying from a fan's perspective, a lot of questions are around the academy and who are the next group of kids that are coming through. With someone like yourself who's got a great handle on that, who are some of the names and some of the young players that are here training with the first team and getting an idea of what you guys are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when you have the academy kids in, because they're so wide-eyed and what we're doing, and you wish you could have them in here a little bit longer to get adjusted. But I think there's some good quality players down there, and obviously Jordan Allen is one player. He's with the national team, and he's been doing really well. When he comes in with us, he plays well. But he's a junior in high school, so he's got another year down at the academy, and I think he's accepted a full scholarship to Virginia. So, and then there's other players coming through the pipeline that are probably going to end up going to a couple years of college, or hopefully even some of them like Samuel Cavitas at Clemson. and he's doing well. He comes in and trains with us. He's a center back, also a right back, and he does well too. So there's a good quality. Every player in the academy, has obviously special qualities. So we're always watching them. They have the playoffs coming up, so there'll probably be a few more players that step forward, and we'll get asked to come in and train with us.
Hey, Miles, we appreciate you making some time for us here on ESPN 700 on Frame. Good luck to you and the boys tomorrow night versus San Jose.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Way to overcome the full body cramp.
Oh, man. It was crazy. It wasn't free. There was a couple times I didn't think I was making it home.
Thanks, Miles.
All right, guys.
There he is, Miles Joseph, RSL assistant coach, with us here on the program. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, as Trey alluded to there with Miles, we'll take a look at the CONCACAF schedule that has come out. Real Salt Lake now knows the dates and where they will be playing. We already knew who they were grouped with, but we'll go over dates and times of games coming up on the other side. You're tuned into On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald back after this on ESPN 700.
This is On Frame, Utah's only soccer insider show on radio. Now back to the boys on ESPN 700.
And welcome back in On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, Trey Fitz-Gerald with you, broadcasting live from the team store at Rio Tinto Stadium. Kind of closing up shop here as the Friday friendly has wrapped up, getting you ready for Real Salt Lake and San Jose, a big Western Conference battle tomorrow night here at Rio Tinto Stadium. But Trey, earlier today, guys, the CONCACAF group stage schedule came out today. RSL now knowing when things will begin and where. You want to give us the rundown, Trey?
Sure. So as we knew from a couple weeks ago, Herediano from Costa Rica and Toro FC from Panama are in our group. New format this go-around with CONCACAF. Only 4 teams in each group. Round robin, 3 teams in each group, 4 games, and the group winner is the only one that advances to the championship or the knockout round. So you can't stumble at all, Donnie. You can't. Even a 3-0-1 record, 10 points, could not get you through.
So. Well, and I'm not sure that Real Salt Lake could have asked for a better setup in terms of the travel, already knowing what's ahead in Panama City, playing in that exact same stadium last time around, the national team stadium, and then going to San Jose, Costa Rica, essentially the same exact trip, same hotel, same food, same type of schedule. Obviously a little bit different of a team. A team in flux right now from both a psychological and a monetary standpoint in Herediano, but does not have the same cachet going to Estadio Ricardo Saprissa and playing in that type of atmosphere. Still 2 of the most underrated teams, in my opinion, outside of the North American and Mexican contingent. So still going to be a couple difficult games, but it could have been a lot worse.
And the interesting thing, James, is you look at how these games fit into our MLS schedule. So let's fast forward a month. End of July, we've got Vancouver here Friday night on the 27th of July. Saturday night, I'm sure I'm going to be watching Neil Diamond, just like all you guys, right here at Rio Tinto Stadium. And then Sunday morning, getting on a charter to go down, hopefully a charter, to go down to San Jose, Costa Rica, and get ready for a Tuesday game at Herediano. Come back on at some point on Wednesday, and then that following weekend in Denver for a Rocky Mountain Cup match against the Rapids. So that's game 1. Then later in the month, August 21st, a Tuesday, Toro FC is here, the Panamanian team, and that game will be right here 3 days after RSL hosts Dallas in an MLS game on Saturday the 18th. The interesting thing with CONCACAF, there are 6 match dates, so each team has 2 home games, 2 road games, and then 2 bye weeks. So then RSL off from CONCACAF for a month until September 18th, a Tuesday, down in Panama City, which is probably the furthest point away in CONCACAF from Salt Lake or Seattle, for that matter.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up, because, Dunny, you say this is favorable, but the fact that you've got long-distance travel kind of thrown into it, because I think I remember Garth saying that this is maybe the longest as far as miles traveled as far as this group goes, RSL will be traveling the most. Is that maybe not as big of a factor? You say the knowing where you're going and kind of your being comfortable with where you're going is more important than necessarily the mileage.
Well, I mean, listen, once you tack on an extra hour or two, I would much rather go to a place that, as a team, we are familiar with, as opposed to going to face an opponent in a new country with a bunch of different issues that you could face. Point being, Toronto FC a couple years ago had a game in Kansas City, then had to fly to Honduras, couldn't get into the airport because of weather, had to fly to another airport, which was about a 45-minute flight away, but that added over 5 hours of bus time to their travel, and didn't get to the hotel until about 4:30 in the morning. So when you know what to expect, at least mentally you can prepare for that, and if you have to tack on an hour or two, that's okay in my book. I've done this trip. I've played against Taro in Panama, so I know what to expect as a player and as an analyst. So it's much easier because then you also throw in the fact that not just the travel, the hotels, the food, but you also know the surface that you're going to play on, whether that be a grass field or that going to be an artificial surface. Herediano is an artificial surface. It'll probably be a little bit better than Saprisa's surface is. But that being said, you won't have the same atmosphere that you would face 26,000 absolutely bonkers fans at Estadio Ricardo Saprissa.
And then RSL will come back on the final day of the group play, October 23rd, and it's a Tuesday before the MLS finale at home against Vancouver and hosting Herediano. So you start the group with probably your toughest road game right off the bat, July, San Jose, Costa Rica on turf. That's balanced out by the familiarity. And look, Herediano, they're going through all sorts of financial and maybe roster difficulties. Nobody knows right now what that team is going to look like, if they're going to be the same team that basically got them into CONCACAF from their regular season performance in San Jose or in Costa Rica last fall.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of players that if they're not sure that their salary and their checks are coming in, you can see them jump ship pretty quick. So it's a good time to face that team early in kind of coming out of their preseason form.
Now, there's a FIFA break coming up again. We'll be dealing with another FIFA break, correct? Now, do any of these CONCACAF games, was it designed to have CONCACAF try to fit into part of that FIFA break or not necessarily?
No, CONCACAF is good about honoring the FIFA break because they know the stars of their confederation are going to be playing in World Cup qualifying for the national team. So we're good there. The only, I guess coming off of a couple of the FIFA breaks, you may have some fatigue for some of the guys. Certainly, there's a Wednesday game in October at Seattle that's coming right on the heels of the FIFA break. That's a week before the CONCACAF, the fourth group game, the CONCACAF finale, if you will. So that could be a little bit of a concern. There's a couple MLS regular season games where Jason may be without Sabo, Will, Kyle, who knows who's getting called in for the different national teams.
All right, and when you've got this many games, and at this point, I mean, you're looking at playing into October. You've got the game in September. You've got the game in October. This is kind of the final stretch of Major League Soccer play, and then you throw in the CONCACAF. It kind of speaks to the importance once again of the depth for Real Salt Lake and the importance of, we all know how important CONCACAF is and that their position right now in the Major League standings chasing that supporter shield.
Yeah, well, I would take that a step further, and when you're building your team identity and you're in your team structure for an upcoming season that you've already qualified for CONCACAF Champions League. The idea after that is once you've built that depth in that group, can you make additions? And most importantly, how many points can you get on the front side of the schedule? Because those long summer months and the travel and everything associated with it, that's when teams can take advantage of you in Major League Soccer. Teams like San Jose, teams like Vancouver, teams like Chivas USA, they can crawl back up into striking position in the Western Conference if you are not careful. And that's because you are not going to be able to do the things on a weekly basis that you would be able to do should you just have a game every weekend. And it absolutely comes into play. And we saw it a couple years ago with FC Dallas, how they were rising while, Real Salt Lake was probably leveling off, and heavy legs. And especially once you get to the playoff format, it's a war of attrition nowadays. So all of these early points and kind of trying to maximize the success early will give you that little bit of a bumper in the late fall.
And Donnie, that's why it's so critical to get into at least the top 3, so you can avoid that wild card match and at least not have to play 5 games in 15 days to get to MLS Cup. You get a little bit of a respite there at the beginning.
We're going to hop out to a quick break. You're tuned into On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, and Trey Fitz-Gerald with you. On the other side, we hope to catch up with Fox Soccer's Rob Stone. We'll take a look around. We'll look into Euro 2012. We'll also get Rob's thoughts on the Major League Soccer standings as a whole. You're tuned into On Frame right here on ESPN 700.
The best. You're listening to On Frame, the Soccer Insider Show. To join the program, call 877-353-0700. Now back to the boys on ESPN 700.
And welcome back in On Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, Trey Fitz-Gerald with you here on ESPN 700. And happy to bring in right now our guest, Fox Soccer's own Rob Stone, with us here on Frame. Rob, we appreciate you making time for us.
No problem, guys. Sorry to push it back. Always happy to talk with you gentlemen. Love Salt Lake. You guys are good people.
I can't believe you pushed us back for guys like that.
I'm so LA now.
You're hanging out with Rio Ferdinand, doing sit-downs with
No. Actually, no. Today it was Didier Drogba, Carlos Bocanegra, Dunga, and Marco Materazzi. Fantastic. Good evening.
There's a lot of names there, but which one doesn't belong?
Not Bocanegra, because Carlos belongs everywhere. He is an American legend, baby, our captain. We love him.
I was talking about Materazzi, but that's okay.
Materazzi, you know what? Probably my most favorite interview. He literally just left the room. A towering figure, and, everybody remembers him, of course, from the Zidane incident in 06, and he's just very open about it, has got a great smile, is out of contract, and has said it is his dream to play in America, and asked him why, and he said he just loves the American mentality. He travels here regularly. In fact, July 2nd, he and his family are flying back here to the States. They're flying actually to San Francisco, renting one of those big cruisers, and his wife and 3 kids are going out to Yosemite. They're touring around, and then finishing in Los Angeles. This is probably his 4th or 5th time that they've come to the States to rent one of those big RVs and cruise around. I was rattling off national parks. He's like, been there, done it. Death Valley, yep, got it. Joshua Tree, done. You want Glacier National Park? Yep, got it too. Mount Rushmore. Fascinating guy who really wants to be in MLS, and admitted to me today that one of his people, are talking right now about joining the league sooner than later.
I'm surprised that that big bus that he keeps renting doesn't have a giant Red Bull sign on the side of it.
It was funny. I asked about where he'd want to go, and you know how these guys are. Guys, they can always play us media type and say their things. But he said, a lot of people want to come to the States to go to a city. He said, I want to go to a team. I want to play on a team. Going to an LA or a New York doesn't matter to me. I want to be with a team that's got the right outlook and the right perspective. And, all these guys want to do is play and win when it really gets down to it, when that whistle blows.
So with our combination of Jason Kreis and all the national parks here in Utah, are you saying Materazzi's coming to Salt Lake?
I'm not saying he isn't. He would not give it away, but it really, in all truthfulness, really sounded like he was pushing hard. And I think it sounded more like kind of West Coast pushing as well. He just had this wonderful enthusiasm and love for our country. And that's what I love to see. You guys, we've been around this league long enough, and we've seen so many foreign players come and go and steal money from this league. And that's the stuff that pisses me off, is when they come over here and just take our money. And he gave me that impression that's not why he's there. He said, look, there are a lot of European players in the past who are fearful of coming to the United States because they saw it as kind of the last sport in the country. It's so far down the pecking order. But now the change in the attitude has twisted, and they see that this is a sport on the rise, And he says, we no longer come here for paychecks. You know, he can't speak for everybody, but he's certainly speaking for himself. It's not for a paycheck. It's for the love of the game, and it's for the love of this country. And those are the type of international players that this league needs, those that can teach our young American players and help them grow to be professionals. You know, that's why I loved, you know, what Peter Novak did with Chicago Fire. And I saw a lot of foreign players come in that just stole our money and did not help our country, did not help our game, did not help our league. And that's the stuff that drives me nuts. And that's the stuff where the GMs and head coaches really earn their money, guys, is finding those appropriate players that are going to help you as an organization from top to bottom.
Rob, you've been around MLS from the beginning, from the days of the Tampa Bay Mutiny, and
absolutely, baby.
Chad McCarty and company down there. You've seen the growth, and kind of to speak upon what you were just talking about. Does David Beckham get enough respect in terms of the risk that he took to become kind of that first designated player to give this league a little bit more of a bump than was
I think the foreign players respect it. You know, Drogba brought it up today. You know, Didier Drogba has a house in Beverly Hills. He loves the United States. He's looking forward, to talking with Beckham, you know, when his family comes back over here. Materazzi brought up Beckham and what he's done perception-wise overseas. And of course there's going to be those guys who are going to say, oh, he just went in to increase his brand and add a couple, zeros to his paycheck. But I think there's a growing contingent of legit big-name international players who look at MLS in a completely different light right now and say, I want to go there to compete, not just go there on vacation.
Rob, bringing it back home a little bit during your time at Fox, talk a little bit about the transition. We're excited to be on your air with CONCACAF Champions League. Just got our group scheduled today. Obviously, you know about our aspirations and our fondness for that tournament. But talk a little bit from your perspective about how that tournament's grown and what was your observation of RSL getting all the way to the final against Monterrey and maybe being one of the first MLS teams to really put that.
Yeah, what a moment that would have been. You know, I still remember Landon Donovan tweeting about that, and that kind of triggered some thoughts in my head. Like, here's a guy who's a quote unquote opposition to you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yet here he is invested full in cheering for you guys because he knows how important that is for Major League Soccer and for soccer period in the States. I thought that was a wonderful moment, regardless of the fact you guys didn't take it. And Fox Soccer has been great. It literally is a growing company because you forget how big Fox is. You know, you look at all the entities they have beyond our borders here in the United States, and they are a massive, massive, massive company, and that's why they're able, to acquire the World Cup rights for 2018, 2022. Everything is kind of skewing in the right direction for Fox Soccer and Fox Sports. Because I've been fortunate enough to deal with a lot of high-ranking people at Fox Sports since I was fortunate enough to join this company in January, and they are bullish on the sport. They are pushing it. They are coming to me with ideas and asking questions and wanting to learn and saying, why can't we do more of this? And what's wrong, what's right, and other things. They really care. And I'm talking guys all the way up the food chain. So this is a sport that is massively important for Fox, and I think you've seen it lately. You're seeing Champions League and Premiership games on Fox National Broadcast Company. That's a big step. What they do in the future, I've heard some really, really sensational things that they're trying to get accomplished that will help this game in the States. I would love to see them get more involved with the actual American product. I want to see our national team on Fox, and I think that day is not too far down the road. And you guys all know how I feel about MLS. It's the league that is near and dear to my heart and will always be there, and anything I can do to stay affiliated with that, I'm all in favor of.
Rob, I think a lot of people's eyebrows raised when they saw the announcement that you were joining Fox Soccer. After so many years being a part of ESPN on so many different levels in so many different broadcasts, what were some of the reasons for you to make that move? Because it literally overnight changed the perception of what Fox Soccer was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That sounds really nice and flattering, and thank you, but I don't take it that way. There's so much more to this network than one person and one face talking, and And if people want to think that, I think that's great and that's awesome. And my ego will take all the love it can get. But it was time for a change. It was a family commitment too. I was just grinding it on the road with ESPN, and I love that company. They were wonderful to me, and I have so many good memories and good people and lessons I learned there. But I was away for too many birthdays, too many anniversaries, too many holidays, too many Christmases. Packing my bags to leave Christmas. Missing on Thanksgiving dinner for work, and a work that I loved and enjoyed. So it kind of hit that point. I got 4 kids, and it was time to make sure I wasn't missing out on their lives and spending more time at home. And Fox came after me hard, and kind of made it known, that I'm wanted. And you guys know, man, it's good to feel wanted, right? You want somebody to put your arms around. And say, man, we're happy to have you here. And obviously there's a lot of other opportunities that Fox presents itself beyond just soccer, which, just made it that much more enjoyable. But, I've never been a West Coast guy, so I'm trying it on for size. And so far it's fitting.
Well, Rob, we're excited that, we're playing San Jose here at Rio Tinto Stadium tomorrow night. But on July 14th, when we head down to San Jose, you're actually filling in for our man Bill Riley. You and Dunny on the call live from Santa Clara, Buckshaw Stadium.
Do you think I'm excited about that?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
You know I'm excited about it. You kidding me? I jumped on your lap when I saw you the other day at the Chivas game. I was fired up. I was like, you're not taking this game away from me. Does Bill have any other appointments, any other weddings or things he needs to go to? I'll be happy to fill it. No, I love it. And I just love what Real Salt Lake has done as a club. Kind of a quote-unquote mid-major city, and you guys have done it right. You got your stadium. Your coaching staff is phenomenal. Your fans are intense. You guys are what MLS is about. I always feel like the LAs and the New Yorks and even the Chicagos get too much love and too much attention. And it's the Salt Lakes that do it for me. It's the Vancouvers and the Portlands. It's those type of towns and cities that really make this league what they are.
Rob Stone of Fox Soccer with us here on Frame for a couple more minutes. And Rob, kind of piggybacking off that a little bit, you said MLS being kind of you're near and dear to you, the love of your heart, really. What do you make of the MLS so far throughout this season? I mean, you've got Real Salt Lake at the top of the Western Conference at 32 points, San Jose right behind. Surprisingly enough, Vancouver's in the hunt, and then out east. It seems very competitive right now. What's kind of your overall take of Major League Soccer?
I think that's kind of what everybody thought it would be. They thought there'd be a lot of parity. I think people expected more from the LA Galaxy, certainly for sure. And as you guys all know, this is a long season. I don't think people give the players and the staff enough credit for how much of a grind the MLS campaign is. It started in March this year, right? And it's going to go all the way until – does it go to December this year?
Yep.
I think it's the longest soccer season outside of like Ukraine or Russia or something that is going on schedule-wise this year in MLS. And, I mean, that's a grind, guys. And you know how it is. You got a couple good months, and then you got to be careful to avoid those bad months. And if you have those good months on the backside, you're better off than having it on the front side. So I don't read too much into things right now. I mean, I clearly read plenty, though, into the Toronto situation early on in this year, and I'm surprised things took that long. But I think it's the same case we've seen over the last couple of years, guys. The West is the stronger of the two conferences, and I think the champion's going to come out of the West, and I think it's either going to be you guys or Seattle right now.
Rob, when was the last time you ate a chili?
Well, now that I'm in California, I think I have Mexican like 3 or 4 times a week. So who knows what they drop in there? But a buchalogi pepper? Yeah. No, that was one and done, brother. One and done.
If you guys, for all the listeners out there that have no idea what we're talking about, please go into YouTube and type in Rob's name and just put chili pepper at the end of it, and you will see some epic stuff from an ESPN broadcast a few years ago.
The beauty about that, though, is somewhere there's like not the hidden tape, but it's like the unedited version that's going to come out on DVD of just like the straight rip of what transpired. And there was a lot of stuff that had to be edited out, but it was good. It was a good learning experience for me. I went in, I think I'd done like a game like on the East Coast the night before, and like woke up at some brutal hour, flew to like, I want to think like Laredo or somewhere in Texas, and then had to drive into New Mexico. got in the hotel, showered, and somebody's on the phone like, hey, we'll be there in 5 minutes. We're taking you to a Pepper Institute. You got to go do something before the game. And my brain wasn't with me. I wasn't thinking thoroughly. I just kind of rolled with it. And I remember just telling the camera guy, I was like, don't stop tape. Like, just keep rolling no matter what happens. Because I'm like, if I throw up, you better damn well have that on tape. That's all I'm saying.
My favorite part is what a trooper you were, because you took the second bite, and the guy looked at you like you were just completely crazy, and you said that was a bad idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bad idea.
What was the scope on that?
At that point, I knew I was in deep, so I was like, you know what? Go strong or go home. So just go in and take that second bite, and the guy's reaction, I still see it. Him kind of leaning back when I did that second bite, and then when I actually finally asked for the knowledge of how long this was going to take effect, that's when I realized how long my day was about to become.
Yeah, what did he say? Something like 36 hours it was supposed to be in there?
It wasn't quite that long, but it was like, it depends, like 6 to 8 hours. I was like, man, I got a game to do. And I actually had to go interview the football coach like about 30 minutes afterwards, and I could barely talk. It was like my tongue was swollen, and I had to apologize. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I just ate one of those buchalogi peppers. He's like, oh, no, what were you thinking? Why did you do that? So it was a great entranceway, to my meeting with the coach, because I gained immediate respect in the pity department from him.
I think we're going to have an exhibition next spring against the El Paso Patriots. So
nice.
We'll have you come down and call that game for us.
Anytime.
Reunite you with the pepper.
Just keep it out of your eyes and other places too, probably.
Hey, Rob, we're going to cut you loose. We really appreciate you making the time for us here in Salt Lake City. Look forward to catching up with you again down the road. Continued success to you.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Rob.
Thanks,
right.
Stone.
There he is, Rob Stone of Fox Soccer with us here on Frame. We're going to take a break, come back and wrap things up as Real Salt Lake gets ready for San Jose tomorrow night right here at Rio Tinto Stadium. You'll hear it all on your home of RSL, ESPN 700.
If you missed the... Back to more soccer conversation on Frame, here on your home of RSL, ESPN 700.
And welcome back in as we wrap up here on Frame. James Rust, Brian Dunseth, Trey Fitz-Gerald with you here at the team store, RSL team store at Rio Tinto Stadium. Things have quieted down here and getting ready for a big matchup tomorrow night, guys. San Jose in town, 1 versus 2 in the Western Conference. Dunny, what do you make of tomorrow night's matchup?
Well, I think when you're talking about what San Jose has been capable of doing this year, defensively, been incredibly tight defensively, especially with the addition of Victor Bernard, as Justin Morrow's a young player who's coming along very, very quickly, day and night from last season. One of the reasons why Frank Yallop continues to utilize him in different positions is because he's just that good, and they want to make sure that he stays on the field. John Bush returns from a 1-game suspension for quote-unquote aggressive behavior towards a ball boy, which I thought was a highly interesting move by the MLS disciplinary committee. 1 game, so he couldn't appeal it. So he's back in goal. In the midfield, Simon Dawkins, a very, very talented player. They picked up his loan again. He plays for Tottenham Hotspur in England. And then up top, I expect Wondolowski and Lenhart to pair up with Gordo coming off the bench. Very dangerous team, a team that I really like watching when they're not playing Real Salt Lake. So it's going to be a very, very good matchup for RSL. Some injury concerns. We'll be interested to see what decisions Jason Kreis makes for his starting 11 and the possibility of seeing Javier Morales continue to build on his fitness, whether we see him as a substitute or, possibly, getting the start from the opening whistle.
And Trey, you said you told me during the break you can't step across a couple interesting stats for RSL in games with 3 games in the week.
Yeah, we've made a big deal out of all these 3 games in a week. It's something that Jason has historically paid a lot of attention to in terms of managing minutes. But interestingly enough, in the previous 3 3-game weeks we've had this year, we're undefeated in the final game, 3-0 on the final Saturday. So a win tomorrow pushes that to 4-0, and that's demonstrative of intestinal fortitude and mental toughness that we know Jason is instilling in this team.
I love intestinal fortitude. That's one of the most epic. That's just awesome.
what's maybe the key for RSL? I mean, we touched on it early, maybe coming off of the loss versus LA, the importance of getting off to a quick start tomorrow night.
I wouldn't say so much a quick start. I would say that I'm looking for an overall response for the course of 90 minutes, because we saw a Real Salt Lake team come out very sharp in the first 28 minutes of the match against the LA Galaxy. I think there were a lot of lessons learned. The negative side is obviously you're losing 3 points at home against a team that you hate to lose against. But it's a short turnaround time, and I think there are plenty of players that recognize that the mistakes that were made Wednesday night cannot happen again. And I still think there's a lot of players that may or may not be fighting for starting positions at this point based on, the competition factor is incredibly high at this point within this group.
Well, Trey, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think Javier Morales gets into the starting 11 tomorrow night for Jason Kreis?
I hope so. I think that would be huge for his confidence and huge for his progression back from what's been a difficult emotionally, mentally, and physically. That road to recovery has been difficult for him. So, I just saw another quote from Tony Beltran saying, look, I should have played an attacking ball. So that's going to be the mentality tomorrow. Hopefully he's not beating himself up too much. But guys make mistakes. Jason said that's a mistake he makes once every 100 games. It's not going to happen again.
Yeah, we'll have the call for you here on ESPN 700. 7 o'clock kick, 6 o'clock pregame. The top two teams in the Western Conference, RSL and San Jose. Thanks for tuning in. This has been On Frame right here on your home of Real Salt Lake Soccer, ESPN